Oof. Here we are. Sorry about that. I had a prolonged emergency, but it's okay now. I do have the hat on. But look, the green screen is automatically taking the top of the hat on. I think that means I need to put the light on. That's what needs to happen. Hello. It's a wizardy day. It is too hot. I can't wear the robes, so you have to do with casual wizard today. Thanks for all checking in today. It's Wizardnesday. I'd originally built it as Wizard Wednesday, and then I thought, no, we can upgrade this to Wizardnesday. Had a weird glitch on the stream then. I had a bunch of existing stuff waiting in the queue for wizardly themed games, so I picked 3 others, and we are gonna check them out and see how wizardly are they. They're not going to be like mechanically that similar. So let's check out our patrons game first. So thanks for sending this in. And I know I'm repeating myself, but I'm saying it more for the 1,000 people that usually watch this on the VOD after the stream. But basically, the patrons of this channel are now sort of subsidizing the other games that get shown. So Crackers, who is in the chat now, or Crackers, I don't know how to pronounce it. This is their game. You know, they support the channel. They're part of our Discord community. They're in there kind of giving each other feedback, helping each other out, all of that kind of stuff. And they've submitted their game. And that has allowed me to pick out a bunch of other wizard-themed games and make a themed stream. And that's kind of how the channel works now. It didn't work that way before because we didn't have enough patrons. But now we have enough patrons, so the patrons games sort of set the tone for everything else. Okay, so just to check if I've got... because sometimes the devs send me a little note of what to focus on. And Wizardnesday. So you said, oh yeah, this is an interesting set of questions. So you said you've been planning to go mobile first. So what are my thoughts about the game on mobile versus this game on Steam? Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think you can do both, and I think the best game that I saw recently that did both was Birdigo. I encountered this as an iOS game first. It was like, you know, a free chunk of demo, and then after a while you paid like $2 or whatever to get the full game. But there's also a Steam version of this game, and it's like, you know, Balatro with Scrabble mixed together. There are certain things about this that make it a very good candidate for being a mobile game, and some of that is that it doesn't have any like gamey fantasy jargon type stuff in, and it's just a real world theme. So would think about that a little bit. And I mean, the other thing with mobile and why I, you know, firstly, I don't usually cover pure mobile games on the channel, and that is because there are certain things about the mobile environment that sort of stop those games feeling like indie games. And obviously there are premium mobile games like Reigns and 80 Days and all the stuff that Inkle put out that are very clearly indie games. But as soon as you go down the route of making a game free to play, or, you know, all of that kind of stuff, it stops having that particular type of indie appeal. So I tend not to cover lots of mobile games. And also there's the issue of once you get in the higher end of the market, the companies are just spending so much on ads and user acquisition to get people to look at their games in the first place, which is why you have all of those strange mobile game ads where the ad has nothing to do with the game. It's all just sort of like attention seeking for money type stuff, which is what advertising is, isn't it? But so yeah, I mean, I think certain types of games can be good mobile games, but you have to sort of temper your expectations of how financially viable that is. And I think the best way of doing it is often that Birdigo way of doing it, of like, just make a good game. And if it's chill and casual enough to be a mobile game as well, great. But you might have to structure the game in a particular way. So have a look. I mean... the other thing is, you know, tying into what Robin just said in the chat, you know, the proper indie game categories on app stores seem to have become more and more prominent. Yeah, they've got like a taste profile for, they know that they have a section of players that want to play a quote unquote proper like game, and they push them like all of these Inkle narrative games and, you know, the app version of Slay the Spire and Balatro and stuff like that. So that does exist, but you'll tend to find the games in that category are games that already did very, very well on PC and have some sort of port. There are things that go the other way, you know. Reigns is an example of a game that was very clearly designed with the phone interface in mind first, and I feel like the phone is the real version of that game. But you have to kind of bear all of that in mind. Yeah, I understand that, Bernard, as well. I feel that way about consoles. There are certain types of games that I would rather not play games on a PC unless it's a game that really requires a mouse. Most of the time, if it's an action game or something that could be played on a touchscreen or a controller, I would rather be sitting in my lounge. I have exactly the same thing. Okay, so what are we doing? We are doing Tetronymos onto a grid. That feels very nice. I don't know if all of the effects and everything you've got there are exactly what the end version of this should be, but it feels very nice. There's a lot of attention to detail in terms of like the different stuff you can do. Interface is reasonably intuitive here, so I click on a object, and then I right click to rotate it. I feel like being able to use the mouse wheel for that would be good as well, but it's not important at this stage. So I am going to be... These all say right click to rotate pattern. They all say the same thing. They also have like a little... like a mana cost or something. And some sort of element, I guess. So if I put this down... This one is called Magic Finder. So this instruction is the same on every card. So I would think about putting this somewhere else, because when you look at this at a glance, it makes this game look more complex than it is, because you've got this text on the card. And this text isn't really specific to the card, right? So the fact that that text is repeated 3 times, when someone first glances at this game, they're going to think, oh, this is some complex deck builder with a different rule on each card. And it's not actually a different rule. It's just one of the core mechanics. Okay, I've got low mana. I'm not sure what that means yet. Feels very nice to interact with. And then I can't spend this one because I don't have enough, so I finish. And we rotate one of these. Okay, so we're trying to fill the grid, and that means you want to leave certain types of spaces or you'll get stuck. Yeah, at the moment, I think this game... So, what Robin said about the Magic theme, I kind of agree. It feels like you've gone quite far ahead with the polish and the art in this, but the theme isn't that strong yet. Okay, that says dig 5 random fields. Okay, so this one does have a different rule, but I can afford to play that because that uses this resource. See, that seems like a bad move. If I'd have known what that did, I probably wouldn't have used it, because I don't think this is a situation where randomness is going to help me very much. Unless the goal is just to fill it up as quickly as possible, which I don't know. But there's something about this particular set of rules that is going to tend people towards perfectionism and wanting to fill the whole thing. Oh, okay, so you can play a thing on a space that you can't use it on, and it just sort of wastes one of the elements, one of the blocks. It's Leicester. Okay, dig 5 random fields. Let's do that again. The UX is very good. The way that the cards feel to interact with is very good. I do think it has a very mobile kind of aesthetic, but I don't think that's necessarily a good or bad thing. But it does feel kind of strangely... The way that the art style matches with the weight of the game feels a bit strange, and I'll try and explain what I mean by that in a minute, but I'll focus on learning the game for now. Here's our first cards reward. Click 1 to see the card details. Okay, more info. Right click to rotate the pattern. We know what that does. Common Earth. Main effect. Effect is active when card is in hand. Every time when air card is used, increase energy by 1. Okay. Card will be removed after usage. So that's a card you can only use once. Main effect. Effect is active when card is in hand. Every time when common card is used, reduce card cost by 1 until the level ends. Okay. I see. Okay, so you've got a short version of the card rules here. So when someone uses a common card, which is this grey diamond, this reduces by cost by once. Okay, that's quite fun to play around. I don't choose them though, I just take them all. But then I have a deck manager, so I can choose which ones to use, I guess. Great, we found some cards. Let's check our deck manager and see if we can improve it. I love this map. I think you could lean a little bit more into the fantasy because at the moment the font choices aren't giving cute fantasy, they're giving like Roblox. I just have Roblox PTSD, which means whenever I see the Fredoka font, I think of Roblox because it's like 80% of Roblox games use that font. It's like built in and it's the Comic Sans of Roblox. But it also makes me... It's a very friendly looking font and I think it can be very appropriate in certain situations, but it does tend to make a game look like it's kind of cozy and aimed at kind of 10 to 14-year-olds in my mind. But the map is beautiful. And I think if you could find something that was like still cute and sort of easy to read, but looked a little bit more in line with this type of fantasy. You know, so still a little bit quirky, still a little bit cute, but a little bit more like a medieval script font. I think the kind of art direction on this would really shine. Just to look at this is the one that they use in Bad North. I think this is probably custom font. You can see this one is reasonably legible. It has little serifs in the corner, but it's still reasonably legible. I think this is a good example of how to have a font that kind of reads as medieval fantasy, but is still kind of a little bit goofy and cute. Whereas this is very Robloxy, and that makes it feel like a very kind of, I don't know. I think the very casual sort of pastel and rounded font thing may be a mismatch for how heavy this game could get once we've got a few cards and we have to think about what we're doing. Because if you think of like what is a casual deck builder, or a game that uses deck builder mechanics that is very casual, that is something like and sorry to keep jumping out of your game and jumping into other games, but I think it's helpful. You know, if you want to think of like a casual game that uses deck builder mechanics, I think the key difference, if you look at something like Clash Royale, and part of the reason for this difference is because it's a real-time game, right? But look at how much text the player has to look at or read when they're playing a game of this. You know, you've got these sort of mobile games based on collecting things and building a deck of things. And if you go down the Hearthstone route, that's very hardcore. You know, you have to read all of this text. You have to understand all of these rules. This is the other extreme end of the spectrum, which is like so casual that, okay, you might have to know what these guys do, but mostly you sort of have some stats for them that you level up, and then you intuit their behavior by putting them on the board and seeing what they do. And the games are so short that it doesn't really matter if you get a new character and you don't really know what they do and you use them wrong, because the game is only 2 minutes long anyway. So when you think about the weight of information to give people in order to play your game, these things all factor in, because you might think it's like helping the player to give them all this information and tell them how these things work, and actually you're just overwhelming them and making the thing unappealing. And to go back to like Bad North for a minute, which again, it's like a real-time game, not the same sort of game, but there is no text in that game when you are playing it. And there is no textual explanation of like what makes the characters different, really, outside of like the basic tutorial of how they work. Okay, we're in the deck manager, and we're going to pick some stuff. Select one of your collected cards. Okay, I'm going to do it. Now add it to the deck. Yeah, okay, so I want to use the one that gradually decreases in cost. I think that's a cool thing to play around. You can have multiple decks. Okay. I've got 19 out of 20, so I'm going to put this fire card in there. This one gives me an energy when I play a lightning card. So I'm going to put that in. Okay, I'm going to take one of these regular long ones out and I'm going to put that one in. So at the moment, I can't really see what the synergies or strategies would be, but you've given me enough cards that I can't fit all of my cards in the deck. So I've been able to like take out one of the basic cards that doesn't have a secondary effect and replace it with something else, which I think is a good place to start. It's not like overwhelming us with complexity. So I'll save that and go back and we'll play another level. Play. And I think the other thing that concerns me outside, this is more a theme and art thing. We're digging, right? That's the theme, is we're digging like archaeologists, and that's kind of what you're going for. You're digging that's why it's called an expedition. I think the problem here is that this is not a super appealing thing to see, right? So what I would be tempted to do, the first time I played this, I actually played this for like 5 minutes before I scheduled the stream as well. I thought this was like a block of mud coming out of the ground and I was building a garden. And then when I saw that the mechanic was called digging, I was like, okay, you're digging a hole. But I think there's a missed opportunity here to have like treasure and stuff under here. You know? And it's like the College of Winterhold in the College of Winterhold in Skyrim, where you've got wizards and then they go on an archaeological dig for wizard stuff and they use their magic as part of the process of trying to uncover this ancient stuff. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, other people in the chat saying the same thing. It looks like we're growing something out of the ground and it's like, why am I growing a brown thing? It doesn't look very appealing. It just looks like, so even though the theme is we're taking something away, players are still going to want to feel like they're building something nice. And I think if your theme, right, exactly, new to narrative, exactly, that's the point, right? Not super hyped about turning a map into dirt, right? The theme of digging a hole, fine, but we're usually digging for something. And I think we can turn the map into a big square of dirt if there's cool stuff underneath there to uncover. And I think if you had, and I've seen games that do this, if you were taking away tiles to reveal treasures underneath, right, and some of those treasures were 1 space, some of them were 4 space, some of them were 3x3 or awkward shapes, that would add another layer to gameplay, because you would be using your cards to dig, and then you'd start to uncover something, and then you would start to have to prioritize specifically uncovering that thing next to it, or choosing to look somewhere else to make sure you're getting everything else. So you've got this other layer of like a battleships type game. And then if you finish the level and you haven't uncovered all the pieces, or what, I mean, I guess maybe you do always uncover all the pieces, so that would be like a thing that would break that, I guess. But there's definitely something you could think of there. But yeah, I think even if you made this visually look more like a whole, because that's the problem, is people are not reading it as a whole, it's still not like the most appealing use of the theme, I guess. Gonna draw 2 cards. We can sort of always place all of our cards. It's just a case of, do we waste some spaces? So that on a lightning card you gain an energy, but I don't have a lightning card on hand, so that ability is not going to do anything. Yeah, I think taking the right click to rotate the pattern away would be a good idea. Because when I'm scanning the cards, I end up reading it even though I already know what it says. And it's helpful to have there, you know, it would have been helpful as a kind of early playtest thing to make sure that you didn't need to have a tutorial because it was baked in there. But I think you could just, you know, flash it up here if the player seems to not know what they're doing or whatever. Okay. When we use a common card, this goes down in cost. So these are all common cards. So we're trying to get this down to costing 0 on this turn. All of our cards are going to reduce the cost of that card. That's a fun interaction. I like playing around that. Yeah, I would like to be finding something when digging. I think the issue is that the game sort of always requires you to dig everything. So what I would be tempted to do is give the player fewer turns and put treasure under here. Right, so if at the moment with 6 turns, I'm pretty sure I can clear all of this and I can get 3 stars. And that's fine because we're in the early part of the game, right? But if we did want to make it about uncovering treasure, which I think would be a better use of the theme. And it can be magical treasure, right? So we're using magic to uncover magical relics. Great. Then we would give people maybe 4 rounds. So there's more of a chance that if you half uncover something, you won't get it, you know? Okay, let's go back to our deck. So what have I got? I've got a lightning card now. That's good. So I am going to get rid of... Let's take that one out. And... put the lightning card in, so I've got more chance of... putting the card I want. Dig 6 random in a row. And let's replace one of the water cards with this. Choose one of 3 water cards. It uses an energy. I think the sort of 2-tiered energy system is interesting as well. So mana is what you get every turn. And then the little yellow energy symbol, you have to build it up. And that does your sort of bigger cards. This has got a skull on, so we're going to try... let's do both of these. We'll do Wild Plains, and then we'll do the next one, and then I'll move on to the next game. Yeah, we don't really know why these characters are digging. It feels very strange. Okay, we're going to use that, and we're going to get... a silly amount of energy. Oh, hang on. I see. Low mile. Okay. uses 0 energy. Don't understand what that means. So I'm digging the field. I'm doing the random one first because I don't know why. I tend to do the random thing first if I think that the outcome of that might affect my next couple of plays, but that was always just going to dig stuff that we hadn't filled in anyway. It was always going to just like okay, so just fill up the empty space, I guess. Next turn, can't play anything else. Yes, but the main mechanic of playing the cards onto the grid is satisfying. I think you're onto something there. I think it works very well. I'm not quite sure about the fantasy or, you know, like people said, how satisfying it is to make a brown square. I do think uncovering treasure is the way forward, but the trick is it needs to be different size treasure. And some of it needs to be like awkwardly shaped so you can't actually get it out by the end of the turn because, you know, you didn't put your stuff in the right place. Because at the moment it feels more like the problem is that all of the thinking that you're expecting us to do about the cards, which is going to gradually ramp up in complexity, right? Because of the nature of deck builders and what these cards are like. All of the thinking you're requiring us to do about that, there's not enough complexity in the context we're playing them into to make the level of complexity of the cards make sense. You know, so if you think of a game like Slay the Spire, it only works because as our deck ramps up in complexity, the enemies also ramp up in complexity, and we have to think about how the deck that we've built or the deck that we're building relates to the capabilities of the enemies and the fact that, you know, this enemy is going to get stronger if we have too many skills in our deck, or this enemy is going to flood our deck, so we need to be able to draw more cards and cycle through it. We don't have a match in the level of complexity of like the context of the level we're playing in and the context of the tools that the player has to try and beat the level. I think that's the problem that this game has at the moment. This needs more in it, and I do think digging up treasure is the way of doing it, and maybe you just haven't found the right way of doing that yet. You know, I don't think it needs to translate to... They can just be points, right? It can be, oh, there's this giant fairy portal, like a magic mirror, and it's like a 3x4 space on the grid buried under there, and we're uncovering it, right? That doesn't have to be an item that has any meaning beyond it being worth 2,000 points at the end of the level or something like that. But if you don't have some more complexity in the actual grid that we're building or uncovering, then the level of complexity of the cards starts to feel a bit silly and mismatched with the thing that you're being asked to do with the cards. You know? It's like, you know, this is like a general game design thing you can think about. You've got the tools that you give the player in terms of their actual active mechanics that they do with their controller, right? And then you've got the context you put them in to test the skills of the player using their tools. And I think the way that this game currently feels... Oh, we've got some 2s here now, so we're going to have like things that we need to hit twice to break them, which is slightly more interesting. But the way that this game currently feels now is we've got very complex player tools and a very simple context. And it's a bit like, you know, you have a Dark Souls character controller that can do all of these different moves and use different weapons and spells and stuff, and then you put them into something like... Vampire Survivors, where it doesn't actually matter what moves you do because you're just sort of button mashing. That's kind of the type of mismatch I'm talking about, even though that's a very different sort of example. But yeah, this is kind of classic match 3 game type thing of like, now we have to deal with things that need to be booped twice. So you need a visual way of representing that, because it looks like that's been booped once, but it still looks like a hole in the ground. So I think the way that I would represent that would be to have like a cracked piece of ground before it goes into a hole. Something like that. Okay, we don't have energy, so we can't play the fire random ones. I think the way that the elements are themed in this feels quite good. Like fire is the one that has the randomness that uses energy instead of mana. The draw cards tend to be lightning themed, I think, or water themed, I can't remember. But there is a sense that the elemental magic maps onto what the cards do in a way that could become like helpful and intuitive over time. Got a curse card. Yeah, I'll have +9 energy, thanks. The thing about this kind of game is you do want to keep what's happening in this grid relatively abstract, otherwise you're going to create loads of problems for yourself for like not being able to do level design and make this varied. If you think of like match 3, just grid-based games in general, like your Candy Crushes and stuff, the fact that the game is relatively abstract and what you're doing here is what allows them to have like loads of levels where, okay, now everything is moving in this way, or there's these things that you have to destroy in a particular way. And that's just why they tend to keep it reasonably abstract what you're doing. I do think, you know, obviously you could spend more time on making the magic really juicy and stuff like that, but I think we need to deal with the issue of the goal of the character and why the player is digging a hole. Otherwise it just feels like a big waste of magic. We've only got 2 turns left. I'm not going to do very good at this, but let's just do our best. Placeholder Goblin is shouting at me. Stop shouting at me, Placeholder Goblin. It's a deeper hole, I guess. We've still got 1 turn. Okay, that's good. What I really want to do is draw one of my fire cards so that I can just randomly blast some stuff, but not gonna happen. Right. That's it. I'm gonna have to wrap up on that one. I think you've got the basis of a really solid game there. I think it's interesting because you had this question at the beginning of like, is this a mobile game? Is it a Steam game? I think if you want it to be a mobile game, you need to make it way, way simpler. And I don't mean any of the mechanics need to change, but I think you're presenting lots of information to the player that they don't really need to know. And particularly those starter cards of like having text on them that explains a repeat mechanic that isn't actually to do with those cards. You want to really wheel that back, you know. And again, I think if you want to make an indie game as a mobile developer, do go and have a look at Vertigo, because this is such a good example of what I think the level of UX is for like a sort of thinking person's mobile game. It's still not giving you loads of like unique elements where you need to read the rules of a specific card and stuff like that, you know. And yeah, I think you've gone for this very friendly art style, but it does sort of run the risk of feeling childish rather than casual. And some of that is to do with the character portraits that you've put in. Some of it's to do with this Fredoka font. The map looks lovely. Lots of the effects and stuff feel nice. But it does feel like sort of fantasy that's aimed at a tween or something, rather than like a soft, casual, cozy aesthetic aimed at an adult. And there's lots of things. The illustrations are doing that a little bit. This font choice is doing it a little bit. And then from a gameplay perspective, I think I would rather have less complex cards and a more complex situation to deal with on the board. And I don't know what different shapes that could take, but I do think like uncovering treasure as you go would be a good way to solve multiple problems at once, because at the moment we don't really know why we're using magic to dig a hole. And that's going to be a massive problem for some people. And also, it's just a visual problem of, you know, it's not satisfying to turn a lovely green piece of grass into a big brown square, you know? I think if you do kind of keep it in the area of it being more complex, then you probably do want it to be a little bit darker and more serious in the aesthetic, and like the blasting is a bit more like bombastic and everything, because it feels very, very gentle, but it's sort of, there's a line between like casual cozy aesthetics for adults and aesthetics that look more like a sort of Roblox game aimed at a sort of 11-12-year-old, and it is kind of leaning more over towards that way. And I think the typography and the illustrations are doing that most at the moment. Okay, let's check out Bibidi Bibidi. Let's crash Bibidi Bibidi. Oh no, it's still working. Got deck builder, I'm pretty sure. Can't remember. He's a good wizard, isn't he? It's called Tomfoolery. What more could you want? A wizard called Tomfoolery. We're gonna embark. So cast spells by placing 3 cards in the spellbook. Each card uses a single part of the card. Okay. That's his ability thing. Create a spell by putting 3 cards into the spellbook. Each spellbook slot activates a different part of the card, so order matters. Each card has 3 parts, top to bottom: the boon, the school, the force. Okay. Hover over icons, yeah, we know how that works. So this is what he's going to do. He's going to attack me, and he's going to summon a tiny slimy if I hurt him. So we're going to put the boon in first. Bibbidi boo, sim bibbidi. Okay. Boon. Okay, so this one is highlighted at the moment because that's a boon. That adds an additional target. So that's going to make my spell target 2 guys. And then we're going to do a zap. Oh, and now I see why it's called Bibidi Bibidi, because we're creating the words of the spell. And no, what does that do? Draw cards equal to force. Okay, so we're going to target 2 enemies with 1 force of zap, and then we're going to draw 1 card because that draws equal to the force. Amazing. He says the spell. Right, so there's lots of stuff to like here. off the bat, like me, you probably like the art. There's a really cool concept here. We're taking our cards out and then we're using them to create a spell out of like the phonetic spoken magic system in this world. Before we get too blown away with the art and everything though, I want to say that there's a potential problem here, and I want to call it out before we play it too much, because I want to see if my, concern is founded. And that is basically, if the game is, you have 3 slots, you have A, B, C, and things can go into A, B, or C, and then you draw 5 things, there's lots of potential problems there of not drawing enough things to fit in the slots. There's also the potential issue here of each of these cards can actually only go in one of these slots. So there's not that much kind of flexibility or creativity. It's very much a case of, you need A, B, and C. Did you draw A, B, and C? Or did you draw A, B, C? Or did you draw A, B, B, or whatever? That feels like it could end up not feeling like I'm doing much thinking or playing a game with my brain, and rather just drawing random things and seeing if I get what I need. And I really hope that's not the case, but I want to raise it before we play a bit more so that I can test that sort of hypothesis about a thing that could be wrong with the game. Okay, so these are zaps. They're blue cards that go in the middle. That is a bubble, and that is a bubble. So all of my cards now... Oh, no, that... Ah, that's the force. Okay, so the force is the bottom. The boon is there. I see. So these cards have a boon, so they can go in the first slot. These cards have a school, so they can go in... all of the cards can go in the second slot, and all of the cards can go in the third slot. So they don't... Most of the cards have these second 2 things, and some of the cards have the first thing. That's how it works. So we're going to add 1 force to the spell. Oh no, actually, we've got 4 guys attacking us. So let's do the shield. We'll gain 1 shield. We're going to do... Add 2 force to... Yeah, okay, so we'll do that. A zap of 1, and then a force... addition of 2 at the end. Choose target. We're going to get rid of one of the tiny slimies. Cast spell. Yeah. Yeah, I should have put that in the third slot. I'm a fool. Yeah, let's see how this plays out over a few more things. Right, so Kadabra, I'm going to put that in the last slot. We'll do a draw there. Let's get a shield. Okay, cast spell. Defending in this feels so small because I'm always only ever getting 1. Okay, we're going to try and attack more than 1 character with a zap of 2. Choose 2 targets. I'm going to chip some health off a bigger one and try and take out a tiny slimy because I'm trying to reduce the amount of attacks that they have. Cool. Okay. Yeah, so initial concern, a little bit alleviated, I guess. So we'll put the... Let's gain a shield. We'll use the 3 there. And let's get rid of this guy. Sometimes you just need to zap a blobber. Okay. He makes a new one whenever he takes damage. So basically, these guys aren't worth attacking if you're only doing 1 or 2 damage. Because you're spawning a 2 health enemy. So there's lots of stuff here that inspires confidence, right? One thing is that, remember in the last game I was talking about like the player's tools and then the context they have to use them in. Here we have, it's almost the opposite. Like the player's tools are actually quite simple, right? I've got 3 types of spell. I've got a spell that lets me attack. I've got a spell that lets me draw cards. I've got a spell that gives me a bubble shield. And then the other core mechanics of like how these cards are arranged. It's relatively simple. But the situation I'm in is like, oh, this guy is a minion and this guy summons minions when you deal unblocked damage. And what that does, I think when you are presenting a demo to people, and obviously the last game we looked at, Magic Finder, is still in the early stages of development where they're trying to work out which direction to go in it. This is a different thing. This is like a commercial demo on Steam where people are saying, this is the game we've made. And we're probably not going to change it loads. But what this does do is it inspires confidence that the person understands deck builders, because what they've done is they've done that Slay the Spire thing of, you know, this enemy has a very specific behavior that you need to pay attention to, because if you just spam in a way that you play, you know, if you work out a way to play every level and you just spam the level in that way like you're playing an auto battler or something, you're not going to win, because the enemy has a particular like adaptive counter to some of the things you might do. And in this case, it's we're basically not supposed to attack the big blobber unless we're doing, you know, 2 to 4 damage, because every time we take 1 damage off it at a time, we're creating a false economy by spawning slimes that hurt us. Okay, so we're going to do Boo, which lets us target more than 1 character. We're going to do Zap, which gives us 2 damage, and we'll do Zap there, and then we choose 2 targets, and we're going to get rid of one of them, and let's just get rid of them both. Can't do anything else. Right, we just want to do as much damage as possible, really. So Zap. Cool. So yeah, even in the first level, quite a bit of thinking to do. I think sometimes it's very easy to fall in the trap of thinking that the like amount of text on the cards and the complicatedness of what you show the players is where the tactical or strategic complexity comes from, but it's not. It's about the interaction between the tools that the players got, the variability of those tools, and the situation they're in and the specificity of that situation, and then the player needing to read that situation and then go, okay, what's the best way to use my tools right now? And that's not necessarily the same as something just being complicated. Skedaddle. Magnetize target until end of turn. Magnetize randomly. Magnetize whenever you apply a debuff to another enemy. Magnetized enemies also gain 1. Okay, that sounds fun. And that gives us Blight. Apply poison to target. Yeah, I wanna do like a debuff poison type build. That sounds like a fun thing to try out. So we'll start with shield. We're gonna zap. We're gonna get 1 point of shield, and we're gonna zap one of these smaller guys. I'm getting beaten up already. The game is already flooding my deck with bad cards. So one thing I would say is these type of enemy encounters that flood your deck or hand with bad stuff, I think having them at the beginning of a deck builder is not a good shout, because the player hasn't really had a chance to you know, build much yet. It's a bit like sort of kicking over someone's sandcastle before they've had a chance to finish building it, you know? Okay, so add an additional target is not going to work with this spell, because we're doing no. So we'll take that out, save that for later. Yeah, the monsters are great. Okay. We're going to blight 2 targets and add a force to the spell. Let's do the big guy and the one that's already taken 1 damage. We're going to poison them, basically. They have 3... Is that 3 turns? I guess the poison is... I'm just going to assume it works the same as Slay the Spire. Okay, we're going to hurt ourselves to get rid of these. After casting 3 consecutive spells, each additional spell you cast will give you 1 mana burn. Okay. Oh, I see. So we can put the burns in the slots where they won't actually hurt us. Yeah, I don't appreciate like the second enemy. I don't appreciate the second enemy like junking my deck really badly in a deck builder. That's like a late game thing, I think. Okay. Maybe for some reason they just realized that these kind of encounters where they put loads of bad cards in your hand or your deck are necessary early on for this game to work, but I can't sort of see... Can't see it right now. So we're going to get a shield, we're going to blight them so they're poisoned. Maybe they just want the game to be a lot shorter as well. Maybe that's why I'm sort of getting this feeling of being bullied by the game for by having this type of encounter early on. Maybe it's because there's only like 3 or 5 encounters in a run. So I'm kind of, I have a sense of pacing that's based on other games that maybe have way more encounters in or something like that. Okay, bubble. No, we just want to zap it. You're going to get zapped. That's what we're doing, buddy. Zap you back to Dino Land. Magnetize random. So the magnetize ability means that when you apply a debuff to another character, they also get it. Which I think is going to be fun if we're building around poison. Sigil of Swooning. After you cast a spell, magnetize the healthiest enemy until end of turn. Apply 6 ward to start itself at the start of combat. After you cast a spell, deal the damage. I know I'm building for poison, so I should have the swooning, but I'm not looking very healthy right now. So no, yeah, we'll go for the damage, even if it's gonna get me killed. I can do another run. It's fine. You enter a room filled with a glittering hoard of loot. An ornate chest is displayed conspicuously at the very center. It almost seems too good to be true. I open it. The chest flies as you reach for it. Gnarled teeth poke out of the box. It is a mimic. Of course it is. Hello, mimic. I've still got loads of rubbish cards in my deck. Okay, what are you doing? You're doing 4 damage to me. Let's focus on shield stuff, I guess. The shield just for 1 turn, right? Yeah. It's very hard to defend in this game. What does reduce do? Shrink target by each force. Okay, that's interesting. I'm gonna shrink you, bro. Now you're only doing 2 damage. Magnetizing them isn't that helpful, so... Big zap. Yeah, so the system is pretty flexible. You can put like a card with no boon in the boon slot and you just don't get that element of the spell. I feel like shrinking them is more effective than... I feel like shrinking them is more effective than going for shield. It's because I'm reducing their attack. Okay, I don't have enough cards. Right, they're going to do 2 damage. They're going to kill me. We can do a no spell to draw more cards, I guess, with a bubble to gain 1. Yeah, we're going to draw more cards. We're going to get 1 armor, so I can survive 1 more attack. And then... keep stacking the poison. I think the poison ignores shield. Okay, so that was a good approach for this guy. He's going to kill me now, though. -3? Huh? Gonna keep shrinking him. Actually, shrink him by 2. The teeth chest is so strong because he's a punishment for me picking the silly option of opening the chest that was clearly going to be a mimic. Boxing coming down. Yeah, okay, let's get... oh, that one gives you 2 shield. Okay. Sigil of Pollution applies 2 poison to a random enemy at the start of combat. Vengeance deals 1 damage after getting attacked. After using a potion, gain 2 max health. Do I have a potion? I don't. Okay, we'll go with the poison thing again. Ah, okay. We just keep choosing. These are how many things we've made through the dungeon. I'm going to die immediately, aren't I? They're going to kill me. Okay, I've got time to do 1 more run on this, and then I do need to move on to the next game. Haven't found any situations we can heal in again yet. It does feel quite punishing in terms of just like the scheduling of the types of enemies we encounter straight off. But I like it. Sky map. Okay. We've got some Stardust. We can unlock new things. The Midnight Oil is going to give us epic spell cards. This is going to give us sigils and spell cards. Okay. We're gradually building up the inventory of stuff we can get as drops. Cool. Right, this guy's doing the most damage, so let's just get rid of him immediately. And then we'll get a shield to block the attack from the animated tome. So we get rid of him in one. We've only got one incoming down if I went offline then for a moment. Watch someone play it twice. Do they get better the second time they play it? Pretty sure I've got better at this game. What does that mean? Well, it means the game is learnable. So it means the dev has given us all the tools that we need to be able to fail and learn from the failure and then want to play again because we think, yeah, I can do better this time. And a very common problem is when a game doesn't have that quality to it. So you watch playtester play twice, they don't get any better. Rodent of unusual size. Do a no, so no is drawing. We're going to do a zap so we can draw 2. We're going to get rid of that weak card in the first slot. Okay, what's this guy doing? He's going to give us some poison. I'd prefer it if you didn't. Yeah, I love the music on this. It's sort of like, kind of like dungeon synth, but ambient. It is very much a vibe. I think, so the dev is in the chat at this one, isn't it? New to narrative. I think something you've done very, very well in this is just like the level of complexity of the spells I'm building starts off, you know, manageable. And then as I add my cards, obviously it's gonna get kind of a little bit crazy and hard to think about. But even then, if you're doing what I did in the last run and thinking, oh, I'm gonna mostly take the poison debuff cards, you're not gonna end up with a deck that is too confusing because it should be built towards a particular set of synergies. But it's the first thing I look for in a deck builder, is that the developer doesn't actually play these games and doesn't play card games even, let alone deck builders, because one of the benefits of cards, right, is that you can have repeats of the same thing. So if you think of randomizers in general, you know, you could design a dice with anything on the sides. You can have an emoji dice if you want, but generally speaking, the idea of a dice is it, you know, it's the same as doing an integer randomizer in a piece of, in a program, and it is a set of numbers with an even distribution. Cards do not need to be an even distribution, and this is why, you know, Dominion starts you off with like only 3 different types of cards in your deck, even though you've got like 15 or whatever overall. It makes the starting deck easy to understand. It also makes the starting deck boring so that you feel excited and incentivized by the deck building part of the game. And this game has done that very, very well. You know, you've got these 3 core mechanics of draw, damage, and defend, and you only start with those in your deck, and that makes it very simple to learn. And even after that point, when we're doing future runs, it still makes sense to have that simple starting deck, because then when we make these decisions of like, oh, do I want to spec into poison or whatever, then it starts to, it feels more meaningful. So that's the structure of deck builders. It's a structure that works, and when I see people go against that structure, it always screams to me that they just don't understand the genre and why the design patterns in that genre are there. And yeah, you know, changing things just for the sake of it, or making things complex because you think it's cool to be complex, and then players are like, I have no idea what I'm doing here. And also, you take away the satisfying part of the deck builder, which is gradually making your deck more complex and specialized as you go through the run. Let's go for Stasis. This is a common card with Zap, but it does has that the handy keyword means that it does this ability if it's in your hand when you cast a spell or when you end the turn. Okay, so that's quite helpful. We can get like a free shield off of that, and it's also a damaging card. So Yeah, each step we're basically choosing between a normal and a mini-boss type thing. We've got 4 incoming damage straight away, so I think... Unless we can... Well, maybe if we take out the gremlin straight away, that's probably the best bet. So we'll put the zap in the middle, and we'll put that one there, and then we'll focus on him. I haven't checked out Punk yet, no. I remember seeing it and thinking, that's a bit of a bold title. And then I didn't think about it anymore. Let's do a no spell to draw some more cards. And we'll keep the bubble in hand so we've got something to defend ourselves with. And now what have we got? Okay, now we've got bubbly stuff for defense. Yeah, that's quite good. Okay. So we've got Force Shield. We're going to not take any damage this turn. That feels good. And then these guys... Destroy this card permanently after casting it in a spell. Okay, these are like those void cards from Slay the Spire. Okay, that is going to give me shield if I keep it in hand. So we want to do that. We want to zap, and nada. Like that, I think. And we're going to take out the rodent, otherwise it's going to keep poisoning me. Yeah, the encounter design in this is good. They're all kind of offering a different thing you have to think about. It feels very accelerated because you've got like a shorter run, or you know, everything's a bit compressed, but that's fine. You know, that's one of the things you need to just work out about your own games is, you know, the pacing of it and that kind of stuff. Add 1 force to spell. Gain 1 shield. Right, we've got 2 shield already, so we can deal with the damage that's coming in. So let's focus on getting rid of this guy. So zap. 2. Nada. Paul, you can get a wizard hat. We'll do a fundraiser for Paul's wizard hat. It's got to be done. Yeah, the art is beautiful. It's kind of... It feels adjacent to Shroom and Gloom, if you've played that. But it's got colours. I'm always a little bit wary of sort of monochrome games that try and all use one colour, because you lose the UX benefits of colour coding and it makes them hard to see what's going on, and that was a beef I had with Shroom and Gloom. Beautiful game, but that did bother me a little bit. Okay, additional target for the big zap. You're going to zap you both. You can see when I have that thing that chooses an additional target and there's only 2 enemies, it automatically selects them because it knows there's only 2. Again, that's not just like a nice, you know, that's a nice UX thing to do, but it also inspires confidence about the rest of the game. So a player that's playing your game that plays a lot of those types of games and is kind of approaching your demo cynically, because people do, right? When they play a demo, it's like you're trying out a piece of food or something that's been cooked by someone you don't know. You're going to like tentatively try it out and you're going to approach it with a degree of skepticism. And every time you approach one of those little details, like that automatically selecting 2 characters when I've got like the target 2 and there's only 2 characters I can target, that kind of stuff, just I think that goes a very long way in terms of inspiring confidence in the rest of the project. We're going to get a shield and draw 2 cards, and we keep that in hand to get the free shield at the end, and then we're going to do a big zap with that applies 1 force to spell, but if I use it there it's going to do more anyway, so I'll just do that. Get rid of that Neverling. End turn. Get some free shield. And then we just want to do the biggest zap, really. So, zappity, zappity, zap, zap. Sorry, I said the spell wrong. You know, another thing that's also really charming about the way that he says the spell is that that means that now we know if there is another character to unlock, which I suspect there is because of the way that the character was presented at the beginning, they're going to have another little set of sound files for them saying their spells. New to Narrative said, we've been playtesting the game with a small community for almost a year now. These little quality of life things surface early and keep surfacing until you implement them. Yeah. I mean, that's something that we talk about a lot when it comes to playtesting. People are like, what state should my game be in before I do a playtest? And it's like, well, you can try and slip things past people and like give people a version of the game to play that you know there are problems with. But the issue is, a playtest is like a science experiment, right? And if your science experiment is set up in a way that means that the data you're going to collect is things you already know, then it's not as effective an experiment. So if you're taking all this time to prepare a playtest, and you've playtested the game like 3 or 4 times before, and people have already always complained about a particular thing or suggested they want a particular thing, and you know, obviously you don't do everything that playtesters say, right? But if there's something that they keep saying they want, and you know that you want to do it as well, and it's on your backlog, and you set up a new playtest and you still haven't done that thing, and you know that they're just going to feed back on it again, right? So you're kind of creating a science experiment that's just going to tell you information that you already know, and getting that out of the way by spending obviously if the feature request is like a 2-month job, that's very different from, okay, this is a 1-day thing and we didn't plan to do it till later, but if we don't do it, they're just going to go on about it again, this playtest, and that means that we're not going to get the information that we really need. And yeah, I hope that people watching this stream, if you like the look of this game, you go on, kind of play it and wishlist it and kind of give the devs some feedback if you think there's something worth feeding back on. But one of the things that I spoke to one of our devs that did the playtesting video with us a couple of months ago, and I can't remember if it was Curious Dynamics or Rocky Mullet. Sorry, it was one of you. And you were saying that one of the positive signals that you got from doing that kind of playtesting over time with lots of different kind of, well, with the same group, but lots of different iterations, was that you noticed that the deeper in you got, the more kind of feedback you got on the late game, which meant that the players were getting further in, and if you don't address those little UX things, like the devs if this were just saying in the chat, if you don't address those little things, then they will just keep coming up and you will never get to deeper problems because they're just going to always sort of raise those same things. So Pocus gives us deal 0 equal to shield damage to target. That sounds like a very helpful multi-use card, because we can get shield and then zap at the same time. We're going to upgrade the force numbers on our card. Okay, so what I want to do... so this is got... Is that going to... If I do that, will it upgrade that number and that number? Oh no, it's just the bottom number. Cool. Hello, Gremlin. I'm gonna need some healing. And another one of those. I'm gonna have to move on though, because we've got 2 more games scheduled for today. It's great. I'm quite limited in what I can do in this first turn. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's always one of the big positive signs when you're working on any project, is if the feedback is getting really piddly and small, then that kind of lets you know that you don't have big problems anymore. Or if you do, they're big problems that are not affecting the majority of people, right? Okay, we're going to have to move on. I'm not going to engage with this combat too much because I will just get too stuck in. Great. Great art style. I like this metagame progression approach as well, where you're earning a resource and then putting it into stuff. We don't know what all the things are, so we got a little bit of surprise. Also means that you can, yeah, just sort of leave it up to the player a little bit. And for folks that are working on similar games, a great thing to understand, and I know I'll repeat this quite a bit, but these games, like the card-based deck builders like Slay the Spire, and even things like Vampire Survivors, where you are gradually building an engine out of collecting like weapons or tools as you go through the run, and then you gradually unlock a bigger library of stuff, whether it's cards or like weapons for a bullet heaven or whatever. There's a really good reason for having those things gradually unlock as you play the game more. And the most obvious one is that it's a reward and players like unlocking stuff, right? But the other one is a balancing thing, because you will, if you've played Slay the Spire and you've played it for like a long time, you will have experienced this where the starting set of cards are relatively simple and they don't require you to think as much. And then as you unlock more characters or you unlock more cards for a character, you get the more complex stuff. Vampire Survivors does the same thing, even though it's a different genre of game, where the more active projectiles that require you to move in a particular way or get closer to the enemies, they're the things that you unlock further in the game through the evolutions and stuff like that. And the other thing that you achieve by starting off with a small pool of things and gradually widening it as the player plays the game more and upgrades more is that pool has more stuff in, right? So now it is more random. So the chance of getting the synergy that you want decreases on your 100th play of the game compared to your first play of the game. So when we're playing our first play of Slay the Spire and we build a deck that's specifically around a particular mechanic and synergizing for that mechanic of like, oh, I want enemies to damage me because I do revenge attacks or whatever the mechanic is. In Vampire Survivors, it might be, you know, I always build my character around garlic and like getting the garlic is like an area of effect that follows you around and damages enemies, right? So you might build a strategy that you use every time, which is like, I'm going to always use the garlic and get as close to the enemies as possible. And if you have that gradually expanding library of stuff that unlocks the more and more you play the game, it makes it harder for the player to stick to one strategy all of the time, because the random pool of rewards that you get your tools or your weapons from gradually gets bigger and bigger and more chaotic. And that's really, really helpful because you're balancing the game against the player and gradually turning up the difficulty and making it harder and harder for them to do the same thing over and over again. And to stick to the same strategy. And that stops the player from getting bored. But the way that you're presenting it to them is that it is a reward of like, you've got enough XP now, you get to unlock this extra stuff. And some of that stuff is more powerful and great. But it's not just a reward, it's also this kind of balancing measure of gradually making the content pool larger and more chaotic. And that's kind of a thing that's worth thinking about. You know, it's almost like you've got the core base of the game, and then you've got this DLC that is like a super hardcore mode of the game, where everything is a little bit more difficult. The tools are harder to use. You know, imagine a traditional AAA game. You've got the base game, you've got the DLC. And then the DLC is super hardcore mode. And there's really cool weapons in the DLC. There's like really cool rocket launchers and magic spells and stuff. But they're all quite difficult to use. And it's very easy to like mess up with them and hurt yourself. And there's like other stuff in the DLC as well, but it's like all of this cool stuff that you wouldn't want to give to a new player because even though it's more powerful, it's more difficult to use, right? And then as the player plays the main game, you're gradually filtering in stuff from that hardcore late game DLC, and then by the time the player is on their 100th run of that game, it has morphed into this kind of hybrid of those two things. That's how that game structure works, and it's why it works. If you just told players that every time they played the game it was going to get a little bit harder to strategize, they wouldn't like that, but it's presented as a reward, and that's why that design pattern exists. Just looking through the chat before we start. This is called Ultimate Wizard. We're going to be a wizard and blow some stuff up. Yes, Hot Worlds, that's a good point. I think Rarity works the same in Hearthstone as well. Commons are simpler. They have kind of fewer effects. They don't do as much stuff. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad. But it does mean that you can, like, when you're building your deck, you're going to have a majority of simpler cards, and that kind of helps with not getting overwhelmed with everything doing a unique thing as well. Yeah, exactly. Okay, solo indie developer, building Ultimate Wizard around the concept of loot, speed, chaos, and continuously growing in power. This version is not complete, and there are blah 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 blah. Okay, nice to see. We've got some Blizzard-ass spell icons here. We're gonna get a spell. We're gonna go for, because I was just talking about Vampire Survivors Garlic, we're gonna be a Garlic guy. Can I use the controller? I can. Okay, I'm gonna use the controller. Okay, this is like some home camp. I'm loving these little mushroom guys. I can purchase a spell. Summon a crab. Okay, I don't have the crystals that you need to do this. Look at the way this guy walks. It's wonderful. This could be very generic, but the fact that he's a mushroom wizard makes it feel slightly like it's kind of got its own thing going on. Right, beach, okay. One thing I don't like is the controller implementation is just the mouse pointer controlled with the controller. You've made a character-driven action game. People are going to want to play it with the controller. This isn't a good controller implementation. And I think maybe this doesn't actually have a complete controller implementation because I'm trying to click on confirm and it's not doing anything. Okay. We're going to just start off by... That's a Nintendo 64-ass crab if I ever saw one. Yeah, so I think what they've done here, this happens quite a lot. There's like a partial controller implementation that isn't actually complete. So I keep trying to use the controller and then the menus don't work with it. And that happens a lot when someone is, you know, I don't know if this is Unity or Unreal, but they've used like the generic character controller and they've built for like mouse and keyboard and they don't realize that their character controller has some built-in gamepad functionality. So when people pick up the gamepad and try and play the game with the gamepad, it seems to work at first and they can do certain things because the character is partially hooked up to it. But then you get into a menu or something and it's not hooked up. Which is a shame, because I think as soon as you're making some sort of action-oriented game where you're controlling a character, people are going to want the gamepad. I default to, you know, I'm working on a platformer, slightly different, but I default to playtesting with the controller all the time on the platformer. Now it says press X to interact, even though X wasn't doing its job earlier. Okay. Increase fire damage. Yeah, we'll go for that. There's a little bit of kind of janky tackiness about these menus, but what I do like is they have spent the time to put those like exciting delays in when we're trying to see what we've got, which I think is important. It gives you, it gives you the emotional build up to seeing what your new power up is, but it also gives you a momentary break from the game. Is it just Vampire Survivors? Why is it saying thanks for playing already? Oh, because I died. Is it just Vampire Survivors? Well, it is in the same way that Tekken is just Street Fighter. This is just how game genres work. Hello, why are you here? Oh, you're a little shop man. It is, yeah, it's kind of Mega Bonk kind of style. the music is incredibly epic for sort of like how goofy the character is in the world. But I think that's kind of a funny mismatch that might not be a bad thing for what we're doing here. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of kind of tonal. I think they haven't worked out which parts of the game wants to be silly, you know. Because the character that we're playing as and the enemies is giving sort of Mario Pikmin. Charming jank, I think, is the right term. Yeah. Having to move the camera around a lot to stop the trees getting in the way of me seeing what I'm doing. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think that might be almost like a weird little micro game. I mean, the problem at the moment, it's fine to want like innovation, right? Like, I played so much Vampire Survivors, and then I didn't really play any similar games again until Ball X Pit, because yeah, like I wanted to play a slight variation on the mechanics, and I don't think nothing grabbed me in that time. This isn't moving very well across to there. That looks like a bug. It doesn't kind of show you where it's slotted in or anything. But when I see one of these, I think the things that I first look for is not how is it different from Vampire Survivors, or like what does this offer that's different. I think that can be important, but the first thing I look for is like, is it doing the basics correctly, right? And it's like with any genre. I think we give some of these indie genres a harsher judgment because we expect lots of novelty and innovation in the space, but it's very hard to tell when you're dying in this game. It's not super obvious where your health bar is or when you're taking damage. I would say that's the stuff that makes this feel quite weak at the moment. There's not much feedback when I get hit, and that makes it feel like this is, you know, amateur hour a little bit in terms of that kind of stuff. But yeah, back to the other topic. When you play AAA shooting games, there is not that much difference between them a lot of the time. And what you do look for first is like, are the basics of what I want from this genre being delivered on? And yeah, so if someone sends me a Vampire Survivors type game, I'm usually happy to play them, and I'm not necessarily going to be going, how is this different from Vampire Survivors? What I'm usually looking at is this as good as Vampire Survivors, and does it have like the same, does it have all of the effort in the right places and all of that kind of stuff? Because at the moment, this isn't really kind of showing me that. It's there's some UX problems. It's not obvious when I'm dying because the health bar is like piddly in the corner and there's not much feedback when I'm taking damage. There's a bunch of little like basic issues that to me need to be dealt with before you worry about like, is the game innovative? Because if the developer can't make it clear when the character is taking damage or whatever, or like how this menu works, because I can't get that to work, or implementing the controller properly, then I don't think making an innovative game should be the thing that's at the top of their priority list, you know? Yeah, the UI feels too serious, the music feels too serious as well. And there's definitely a territory, and I think Megabonk does this a little bit. I haven't played it, but from what I've seen, there's this kind of humor that you can do where, you know, one part of the game is super serious and then other things are silly. Like the game is silly, but then it has very serious music. I think that could be funny, but the thing about that kind of humor in games is it needs to kind of be obvious that it's meant to be that way, and it's not just like accidental jank because you're bad at creative direction or stuff. Yeah, exactly, Hot Worlds. Why should I play this instead of Vampire Survivors? So if you're going to make a game that is mechanically the same as Vampire Survivors, it needs to do everything else as well as it. And the thing about Vampire Survivors, it has so many varieties of weapons to use and unlock. And just like different configurations of content and loads of little secrets. And you can spot from a mile off the people that jumped on that genre because they thought it was easy to make and didn't really play much of that game in order to get a sense of like what they're competing against. Because Vampire Survivors is so much game for $3. And I know that shouldn't be our only concern, but when you're commercially releasing games, you do need to think about and care about this stuff. And I think a lot of things, I mean, like Relic Abyss that I played a few months ago felt like one of these games where the direction, they're not games where adding like graphical fidelity is going to be the best use of your time, you know? Yeah, the HP is just kind of getting lost in the corner. So I'm not going to play that anymore. I think there's already some feedback the devs there can use. My major problem with this in terms of like, does this convince me to want to play it for a long time? The problem that I'm having with that is that the unlocking of new spells is too slow. And every run I was being started off with the same spell that I'd picked before. And the problem with that is that that's not what people want out of these engine builder games, right? So when you play, and when I say engine builder, that's like a very broad category of game that includes deck builders, it includes bullet heavens, it includes auto battlers. But basically, in an engine building game, most of your kind of skill, if you want to call it that, is the player making choices about the components of their character or their team or whatever. And then the actual piloting of that is maybe a little bit on the back burner. You know, in a deck builder, the piloting of your engine is you actually playing the cards in the combat, and that's reasonably involved. And then if we go over to auto battlers, it's the other extreme of like, it's all about the engine building and the combat plays itself. And then these Bullet Heaven Vampire Survivors things are sort of in the middle, where the enjoyment of the game is about choosing your build options, and then you're just sort of moving around and like trying to stay out of trouble, right? This game is not an engine builder yet because I picked a power up and then I had it every run, and the time it takes for me to actually get a second attack, which makes my character feel different to move around and like just explore how the game works with, is too big, right? And that means that the developer has been stingy, lazy, however you want to put it, with the amount of content they're putting. Because these types of games, again, whether it's a card-based deck builder, an engine builder that is about like getting loads of projectiles and leveling them up, the amount of variety that you need to have in these games is very high, because the enjoyment that players get from these games comes from every run being different. And every run being different isn't about the level being different, it's about their character being different, right? Like Bull X Pit, you've got these different projectiles that you shoot, and it's slightly different from Vampire Survivors. In Vampire Survivors, you get like 6 projectiles. You get fewer in Bull X Pit, but you like, you know, you kind of gacha merge them and synergize them and stuff. That's what the game is about. Obviously, watching everything ping around and do this kind of pachinko, pinball, action RPG thing over here is fun, and it's very kind of enjoyable and you can zone out. But the like moments where you're picking the power-ups and deciding how they go together and stuff, that's where the juice of these games is. And I think that Ultimate Wizard game fits in this category of games that I see very, very frequently, where people have seen that a genre is popular, they think it's easy to make, and they don't actually understand the bit that's important to players, which is the variety of stuff and how the variety of stuff leads to these interesting decisions where you're sitting there thinking about which power up to get. And yeah, we're just kind of swamped with that kind of issue at the moment. I would say, and it's the kind of disconnect between people looking at the moment-to-moment action of the game and thinking, oh, I'll make one of them because that looks easy, and then actually the thing that you need to do to make one of those which is actually good and worth anyone's time is having all of this content variety that leads to interesting strategic engine building decisions. I mean, yeah, so Hot World said of the last game, the health bar is the biggest problem. I mean, it's the biggest problem for the moment-to-moment enjoyment of the game, but at the moment, that larger problem of, like, if I play an engine builder, and again, this applies to all of those different genres of games I played, the time it takes for me to start a run and then feel like my character is slightly different from the last run. That gap is the thing that I judge those games on. You know? When I play a deck builder like Bibidi Bibidi, we just played earlier, after the first encounter, like 3 minutes into the game, I'm going to pick a card and I'm going to think, okay, I'm strategizing now because I'm on the path to building a poison deck, or I'm on the path to building this super fast drawing deck where I'm drawing all these cards. Vampire Survivors, I level up very quickly, I choose a new option, I'm like, okay, you know, I might choose strategically and go, okay, I'm going to pick all of these very long range things, or I might pick thematically, you know? Like, I think that's the sort of thing that people are embarrassed to admit. But if I'm playing something like Vampire Survivors, I will occasionally just go, like, make a thematic aesthetic choice and be like, I'm going to be the fire guy this time. I'm going to pick all the fire stuff because it will look pretty, right? And I'm getting to that within 2 or 3 minutes of starting the game. And when I see a game like Ultimate Wizard that we just played, the issue with it really is that when the game is in that state, it doesn't do a very good job of convincing me that the developer understands what I'm there to enjoy, right? So you can make all of these piddly changes of like change the color of the health bar and all of that kind of stuff. But that is kind of, what's the word? Like it's like, you know, putting your thumb in a hole in a dam. It's a small fix to something that has a much bigger problem. And that much bigger problem is that the developer isn't showing with the game that they've presented us that they really understand the enjoyment of engine building games, which is what those are. They're not like hyper casual action games. Well, they are, but they are hyper casual, and the kind of slightly deeper, more kind of strategic part of it is very dependent on having lots and lots of spells or cards or whatever it is that you build your engine out of, and like allowing the player to make choices very early about what their strategy is going to be for that run. Yeah. Yeah, too hard at the beginning, so you keep having to replay that first bit, and that first bit is not the bit where you get to have a different build, right? And with any kind of engine builder, whether it's cards or Bullet Heaven, you want to let people get quite far into the run, even if the game is eventually going to kill them, right? You know, Borlex Pit, you're usually going to get past the first 10 minutes of a level. You might die near the end, but it's enjoyable to die near the end because you've had that satisfaction of building up your set of things, which is what the actual fun of the game is. And then people don't mind, right? It's kind of what I was saying earlier about like kicking someone's sandcastle down when they're halfway through building it, right? People don't mind if they've had the satisfaction of building the thing, but if you stop them even getting to the point where they've actually started to do the strategic journey of like building the thing, then you've maybe got a problem and you don't understand what type of game you're making. We're going to play Kimmy. Someone told me the name of this genre of game recently and I forgot what it is. It's the kind of physicsy things where you drop the things into the pot. It's one of those. Yeah, I don't know. I have structural problems with Bad North. I think the runs are too long and they take too long to lose. A small restaurant on the far edge of the universe. We'll be doing mouse, an apple, mushrooms, some more, just a little bit more time. Why does it taste so? Should I add a banana? Maybe some salmon? I guessed already. But I'm done yet. Stir with all you've got. Clickety click click. I can click and spacebar. That's helpful. You better have a meal ready. Oh, Balagron. You're so hungry. Okay, we're cooking for monsters. A theme close to my heart. Spooky Ghost Witch. Wake up. Yeah, I think this is a franchise. I think there's been multiple games with the same character from what I could tell. it seems to be a like recurrent character and maybe dev publisher relationship. I'm not sure. I've never cooked before. Fine, I'll teach you this once. Okay. We're going to do some cauldron cooking. Press the start button to start cooking. Okay, I will. Lapis timidly requests for 400. This is how much you've scored this dish. Okay. So we get 3 goes to try and get 400 points. We are going to collect these balls that we put in the cauldron. And they all have different rules. Okay. On collision with a seashell, destroy it. An egg on collision has a 3% chance to transform into a chick. On collision with chickens, eggs, other bird-related things, you gain extra score. Or you collect on collision with a miner, add gems. Okay, cool. Little bit complicated for a first choice. I would be tempted to cook the books here so that there are less, you know, the first choice that the player gets in the game doesn't have quite as many of these unique rules in it. It is a bit omelette you cook, but there's this whole... someone... I think Cheese actually told me there was a name... There's a genre name for this game. Of, like, these dropping physicsy things. We had one in the game jam as well. Okay. But they don't just fall in place one by one. You throw them all in randomly, and then their knocking together does the thing. Okay, cool. Yeah, we need to get the target score. Okay, I went with egg stuff. Seafood. Let's do some seafood. Seafood and eggs. Luck be a landlord with physics. Yeah, that kind of thing. It's a very casual wizard today. Anything else would have been too warm. Look at these characters. That's great. Dr. Mister. Or Dr. Mushroom. Slime. After 3 dishes, destroy this. On collision with a slime, combine into a big slime. Let's get some wine. So again, this engine building game, we're thinking about how to build our engine, and then the engine runs reasonably automatically. You know what, guys? I think it might be time to do a big video essay on engine building. I did one before that was called, like, Your Roguelikes Are Wrong, and it was a little bit clickbaity, and I don't think I really got the point across. But I think just a video essay explaining what engine building is and how all of these different game genres fit into it, I think that might be good. I think that might be helpful, because it's a thing that keeps coming up. We're going to still keep seeing bad versions and good versions, and that's mostly because the people that are making the bad versions aren't really thinking about design much. They're just getting on with making what they want to make, and then, you know, maybe if they're upset when they're finished and people tell them it sucks, then they might start to take an interest in how game design works. But that's the route most people take. They just sort of make what they want, and then maybe they sort of get forced into caring about game design later when someone says, yeah, this game sucks, and they can't really explain why. It's big. We've basically built a whole new set of genres over the past 5 to 10 years that are very rooted in board games and card games, and now lots of people that don't play board games or card games are jumping into them, and they don't have any reference point apart from the 3 video games that they've played that use those mechanics, and they sort of just change. They either copy it in a way that's not very interesting, or they copy it in a way that's lackluster, or they change stuff without really understanding how that works. And that can be good sometimes. You can just accidentally, you know, end up with good game mechanics by changing stuff that you want to change. But often it breaks things. A life without dice is incomplete. Take this, an angel's dice or devil's die. Each roll yields a different result, much like your life. Okay, I'll have one. What does it do? On collision, gain 0 to 300 extra score. Okay, sure. I'll have an onion. New to narrative, that's an interesting point. I think if there wasn't complexity to the effects, it wouldn't give you much to think about. Because you are trying to build synergies, but I definitely feel like it's too complex the first time. And I think that's the thing to think about in your onboarding is like, you know, do you cook the books and like hide some of the complexity on the first run to make sure that people don't suddenly get hit with these three things that are like very different and go, oh. Go seafood. Seafood. All of the seafood. Big pot of seafood. On destroy, gain 20 coins. Okay, let's try that. Look at that beautiful meal. It's got tentacles and fish and chicken and onion and a bottle of Merlot. It's kind of a gumbo type thing, I guess. The solitary gore mimic. Oh look, is a mimic, but it's a suitcase. Is the guy carrying the mimic or is the guy part of the mimic? What is happening? That's great character design. So this is one of the reasons why I pivoted to cooking in my game, is that we have loads of weird little guys show up wanting some food. They just need like one basic animation and you add so much character. More salmon. We're going all in on the fish. Toss in a coin and your wish shall be granted. Oh, it's one of those tourist things. Alright then, how much do I have with me? Many as you can. Okay. I'm gonna give you all my coins. You gave me 3 Kinney Fairies. On destroy, gain 2 chances to remove an ingredient for your deck. Okay. So that's letting you thin your deck. Get a sea otter, although I don't have any of those clamshells yet, so I don't have the... Oh yeah, it was a parasite, because the guy holding the mimic's briefcase had a little orange thing on his neck. That makes sense. Don't worry if an ingredient falls off your cauldron, it comes back to your next dish onwards. Okay. So... Oh yeah, we do get it on the next... We just don't get it to score in that one. The fairies have the funny little faces. They do stuff when they get destroyed. I'm getting that a little bit, Hot Worlds, yeah. The lack of thematic link between... I mean, they're linked by their keywords, right? But why is an onion a fruit? It's interesting because, I mean, this is doing a similar thing to what Omelette You Cook did, where the theme of food is such a strong kind of thing that people have a strong emotional response to. So if you make the game score in such a way that you can't actually make something that you think would be nice to eat, that's going to really throw some people off. Because, especially in this setting, right, when you've got a very cozy setting that is aimed at cozy gamers, where, you know, they're gonna have this like emotional thing with the game where they really want to like serve the customers and stuff because they're used to playing games that have that theme. And then if you're making this soup that is like onions and apples and random poisonous things, and the game is going, yeah, have loads of points, it starts to not jive well with the theme. And in Omelette You Cook, that's kind of funny because it has this very anarchic, like slightly disgusting Beavis and Butthead type vibe to all of the art, whereas this is a lot prettier and feels like these are characters that do want to make someone a nice meal. So I would think about how the kind of keywords and the families of items and how they score together are aligned, and whether it actually scores you for making something that seems nice, because it's not really set up to do that at the moment, right? Special relics. Okay, you're gonna sell us some stuff. This is going to give us new shells whenever we lose a shell, and we need that synergy at the moment. We can upgrade the size of our cauldron. Oh yeah, let's do that. And then we'll remove an ingredient from our deck, because we can. I don't know when that triggers. Maybe it's when we click on next day. Is it going to let us remove the ingredient now? No. Okay. Yeah, Hot Wads, I would definitely play Omelette You Cook if you like that kind of idea, because I think the way that the food tags work in that are very good. Like, some of them aren't sort of that rational, but they have their own families of effects that make sense. So, like, the root vegetables are all linked to getting money, and the cheese vegetables usually give you multipliers on points from other things, so they're treated as like an enhancer of another ingredient. And so each kind of I guess you'd call it a suit if it was a deck of cards. Each suit of items has a particular thing that it does, kind of like the first game we played actually with Magic Finder, the Tetrono game, like submitted by one of our patrons. The actual magical elements had different things that they do. Here it doesn't totally feel like every set of things has its own thing it does. Okay, let's get some more wine. Chicken and wine and tomatoes and some dice, and we're basically making a gumbo with an otter in it now. Click on deck to remove stuff. Okay. We get more seashells. Those are lovely looking jewels. Deck! Okay, we've got 8 remove ingredients. Amazing. Okay. What we're going to remove? So, when these collide together, they give you eggs. That's interesting. And when they collide with bigger chickens, they gain more score. Okay, I'm going to get rid of the sea otter and clamshell synergy. I'm also going to get rid of... I'm just going to get rid of all of the seafood stuff. We're going to thin the deck down. And let me just have another look. Right, yeah, let's just make a chicken and wine deck and see what happens. So, all chicken and wine. And do the next one. Now, where did this Kinney go? Come out wherever you are. And what's this smoke all of a sudden? Is this Kinney your Kinney? Yeah, that's my Kinney. Thanks. Okay, egg. So we've really kind of thinned the deck and changed the build now. And the chickens upgrade and produce eggs and stuff when they bounce into each other. So specializing in that is great. Okay, so this is an interesting synergy. The jewels give you points for bumping into things with the same color as the jewel. So the ruby synergizes with all of the red things in the game. An apple, the tentacle, all of those, that set of items. Whenever it bounces into those things, it gives extra score. That's a neat idea, and it feels like it ties the food and the magic theme together. I'm putting my magical ruby in the dish, and that's going to do this This kind of like magical enhancement of the food or something. Okay, we've hit the target score. My chickens aren't... they only have a 3% chance to spawn an egg when they bump into each other. Okay, fair enough. Get more eggs. I don't know what the fandom usage is, but I suspect they do know. It's the moon from the journey. What's the old black and white film? The Journey to the Moon film. Okay, now I can skip the reward, or I can force myself to take a fruit, even though I don't have a fruit synergy yet. Okay, we're going to build into fruits and chickens now. My uncorked wine is used up soon. Okay. Yeah, they're fun references. Oh, you can do a jewel build, and then the diamond triggers off the other jewels. That's fun. Ah, there's a fruit-bird synergy, because the kiwi fruits, when they collide with each other, they turn into a kiwi bird, and then the kiwi bird triggers the other bird synergies. That's fun. That's a really fun association. But we would need... Oh no, when the kiwi fruit collides with one of these yellow birds, it creates a kiwi bird. Remove the wine, it just wastes space. Okay, I will do. Remove mode, get rid of the wines. Get pineapple. Chicken and tropical fruit. Yeah, that was good. We got kiwi bird. And that gives points when it collides with fruits. The monk gets points when it... proportion to its size when it collides with things. How do you grow that? I don't want to though, so I'm going to skip. I mean, I didn't understand the wines. They all said that they were going to lose me points eventually, so I got rid of them. Truvel prophesizes. I love the fact that they've all got their own verb. They've all got a different word for order. Like how many points do they want? This one's prophesizing. The best ingredient was the sealed wine, the one that I threw away. It's because I didn't understand how it worked. Chris, yeah, it was submitted. It was submitted a while ago. Let's try. Try again. Lapis timidly requests 400 points. Okay, we're going to go with miners and gems and stuff like that now and see what we can do with that set of things. I like doing these thematic streams where it's not really about a game genre because we get a very broad variety of things. Okay, we've got an ore that synergizes with our miner that we just got, and that's going to gradually give us gemstones, which are going to have like weird... The pathway, mental pathway. You can't make a strategy game of any sort with engine building unless the player can sit there and go, oh, I'll get this, and then I'll get this, and I'll get this. You need to have a game that allows people to think a few steps ahead and isn't just like making you do some stuff and then going, what do you want now? What do you want now? You have to be able to look at the options and think how they tie together. So we get green things and they will synergize with the emeralds. We've got 2 emeralds already now. We get a slime to synergize with the emeralds? Yeah, I think. Let's look at the deck. Have we got any remove? We've got 1 remove. So we've got 2 emeralds. And we've got a slime. They're all going to score together. This guy, this guy here is only useful if we've got ores. So we need to keep adding ores to the deck. So there's an interesting dynamic here where things get used up and then the synergies that you built they don't kind of go on forever because lots of things in your deck are impermanent. Whether you're manually taking them out or there's a robot. Whether you're manually taking them out or the game is just sort of like removing them because when 2 things go together they turn into something else. What's that? Sure, give me these things. I don't know what they are, but I'll take them all. Star Shower. On collision, permanently increases the other ingredient's base score by 30. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so that's going to make other things it bumps into more powerful. There's a 10% chance to destroy the other ingredient and gain 1,000 score. That's scary. Permanently increases the other ingredient's bonus score by 200. Okay, cool. Orcs? Oh, orcs are green. Which synergizes with our... I think synergizes with our emeralds. Let's see. Yeah. Orcs and emeralds. That's our new thing. I'm going all in on orcs and emeralds. Look at that. We got 5,000 in the first dish. Get some more ore. We need ore. Another ore. The problem with having the different characters want different things is you need to know ahead of time enough for you to actually be able to do something about it. Otherwise, it's just a pain in the butt, like a random thing happening to you that you can't do anything about. This is basically just Balatro scoring, you know. They're there to provide some flavor, and it's a score target. You can have other stuff where they have like a particular criteria of like, this one scores less for fruits or whatever. But then if you do that, you have to think about, well, what can the player actually do about that when they see that? Are they meant to go in their deck and like waste their tokens to like throw away the things that are going to score badly in this context? The problem with doing that in this game is you just can't really do anything about it if the characters want different things. Something like I'ma Let You Cook is different because each round you're drawing 3 ingredients and you're using 1 and throwing 2 away, so you can adapt to what the customer wants, which is kind of how things work in that game. You might have a customer that doesn't like meat, or a customer that they have a customer that doesn't want anything touching the edge of their omelette and all of that kind of stuff, and you can adapt to it. But because this is just a random drop of the stuff you've got, the only way you can actually adapt to customer requests would be to remove things from your deck, which is quite a sort of punishing thing to force on people, I think. Okay, the uncorked wine, I see. So it adds 8,000, but it gradually reduces in score until it's not worth anything. I get it now. Collision with jewels permanently increase its own bonus score by 40. Okay, we want them. That's good. Ah, my delicious bowl of orcs and crystals and one chicken for some reason. We're doing good. Okay, the sealed wine keeps increasing. Okay, so that was why that was bad when I got rid of it before. Well, is it worth having another miner? I think we only need one miner because we have to keep adding ore to the deck to make the miner do anything anyway. We'll get a kiwi because it's green. And then I'm going to go to the deck and get rid of some stuff. Oh, okay, we've got a shop. Sets the extra score of greens colliding into each other for... Okay, yeah, we definitely want that. Bigger cauldron. Okay. And this makes all of those magical things last longer. I think actually what I want to do... I've got rid of the dark one anyway, because the dark one was the one that like deletes stuff that you might want. So we're going to get rid of the apple, and I think we might get rid of the fish as well. We're going as far in as we can on green stuff. Emeralds. Yeah, I think there's a lot of dialogue in this game that doesn't really need to be there. It doesn't work for me, but I can understand why the theming and the setting of this game might attract people that want dialogue. But I'm kind of skipping through it because it's just not what I'm interested in the game. Sometimes you just need to put more goblins in your kitchen. Look at that. That's deliciously green. So the twin stars has a chance of copying things and giving me extra ones. We've got yellow topaz. Let's get another slime. Let's see if we've got stuff we can remove. We've got 5 removes right now. Right, so I've got this yellow stone that doesn't synergize with much else. It's a shame the miner doesn't count as a yellow because of his yellow helmet, because that would be giving me more points, but I guess they've done that for a reason. The gemologist is going to keep upgrading when he bounces into this, so I'm going to keep the topaz even though it doesn't fit with my green synergy. Yeah, I will leave that for now. Maybe... actually, let's get rid of the chicken. And let's get rid of... Hang on. Where are we with that? Yeah, the uncorked wine isn't doing anything. And I'm going to get rid of 2 of the kiwis as well, because I don't think they're that helpful. It's actually making me crave a kiwi in real life. Haven't had one in a long time. Let's get another gemologist, because these guys keep upgrading. They keep getting their bonus score up every time they bounce into other things. So We want to get them early and keep using them. Diamond. Yes, please. We're making green gem soup with orcs and goblins. Robobin and the disappointing kiwi fruit. This is a very generous demo as well, by the way. Hasn't stopped us playing yet. It doesn't feel like there's loads of stuff cut out of it. There might be. I don't know, but... Oh, we do have some slime still, don't we? You're worthy enough to share my presence. When you are the moon, you want to have a nice big soup. And it is all green. When you are a moon, you have a chalky face, and it makes your teeth look yellow. Ah. Robobin, remind me to send you my alternative Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds t-shirt that I made. I'll send it to you after the stream. Okay, we don't want to remove any of these things. Yeah. I should have got the angel dice. That's another one that just keeps upgrading the longer you use it. Should have got that one. Foolish! Orknian, peeling onions. Hello, dear customer. Keeps peeling onions. Peeling onions without end. What in the world does he even get all these onions? Greetings, chef. Looking to peel onions, are you? Okay. The dialogue seems quite funny and charming, but the problem is that with these types of games, I get in the loop of playing the game and I just don't want it interrupted. You know, it's not... You think of all of the purposes that dialogue can serve in games. And one is to reward you for like doing well and progressing through the game, and one is to give you information about the world, and sometimes it's there to give you a break. Like if you're playing a very intense action game and you have a quick bit of dialogue, it can give people a break. But I'm just so in the kind of machine zone of pulling the handle on the gambling machine in this that I just don't want to read a dialogue. I don't want an onion. Give me that medium slime. Raugen's taste circuits calculate 82,000. Even bigger cauldron. Hell yeah. Reroll. Give me another gem guy. Give me another reroll. I think you're right. I think the Kiwis are holding me back. Let's have a look. Go in the deck. Get rid of the Kiwis. Oh, we've only got one. Get rid of that Kiwi. Our wine's doing good. Okay. We've got a weird little purple thing at the end of the week this time. I don't know what that means. Look at that cauldron. That's such a big cauldron. Ouroborothy. She's an Ouroboros crossed with a Dorothy. Okay, troll. The troll turns chickens into trolls. She does circle back. The end is another beginning. Thy body shall take on a new form. Food. Oh, she's gonna eat me. Well, I'm not going to do any more of that because it feels quite addictive. But I am going to do one more run of Bibidi Bibidi because we have a little bit more time than I thought I'd have. I think, and I want to play one more run of Bibidi Bibidi. Bibidi Bibidi. Because I can. I make the rules. Yeah, I think that's a good shout. I mean, a lot of the dialogue was like setting us up for a choice. You know, like do you want to add this to your deck or this to your deck? And those felt a little bit less avoidable, but they just went on for far too long each time, especially if they're going to be repeating in a run-based game. But yeah, some of it could have just been people saying stuff when we're playing. Am I going to crash it again by clicking at the wrong time? Okay. We did start a run, didn't we? I think I maybe only just got one in or something. Okay. I'm gonna zap that guy. Oh no, we're not. We're gonna zap. Deal an amount equal to shield damage to target. So if we do that and then we do bubble and then we do that, then we'll get 2 shield and we'll deal damage to target, I think. So we do that. Is that going to get rid of that guy? Oh no, it was dealing the shield that you already had, which means the shield doesn't get removed at the end of the turn, which is a rule I didn't understand previously. Add 1 force to spell. Let's put that there. We're going to draw 6 cards just because I can, and that's fun. Toby, there's a bunch of links on the screen that tell you how to interact with the channel in terms of sending stuff in. That's why the links are on the screen. Okay, we're going to shield for 3. Is that enough? That's enough for this turn, isn't it? Yep. Okay. We're going to shield for 5, actually, I think. No. Zap. 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 Let's get rid of the book. I think I crashed. Oh no, I didn't. Okay, that deals shield damage to a target. That's good. So let's do zap, 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 and that. Is that going to get rid of it in one? Yeah, cool. It did it as 2 different strikes, which meant it still got to do its little slime spawning ability, which is annoying. Okay, we're going to attack 2 targets with a zap. And we're going to use that 3 there to juice it a little bit. They're going to attack us for 1, but we do have 1 shield. So the thing I keep forgetting is that the shield seems to roll over. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's the case. Okay, we're going to use a no spell to draw more cards. We're going to get a bit of shield off of that, and we will put that one there so that we draw 2 cards. Right, zap for 2. We put that zap there so that we're only wasting the one with 1 point on it. The VFX when they get blasted is great as well. The like kind of psychedelic wigglies that come out. I haven't played Epic Spell Wars, so I don't have a point of comparison. We are going to draw 2 cards and get 2 shield automatically from that spell, which means that we will block enough this turn from... I think? Oh, turn ends with this in hand. Yeah, that's fine. We keep that in hand. End turn. Get our 2 shield. Got enough block for that turn. Right. That adds a force to spell, but it's cursed if we use it here. So we're going to use it here to gain loads and loads of shield. Just going to get like a crazy amount of shield. And now we can use that shield as an attack. And do a big zappity zap zap. Like that. Yeah, the ability that converts your shield into damage is really cool. Zappity zap zap. Abra Bibidi Bibidi. So we're going to do a no spell and a zap to draw 2 and that one to draw that one to fill the gap. Get rid of the little guy. This guy spawns more every time we hit him, so really we don't want to hit him again until we can do all 3 damage in one. We can do that now because we can do a big old bubble zap like that and do 6. Shrink the healthiest enemy for 2. That sounds fun. We've got a blight card that can also shrink enemies. Rest and gain health. So, I mean, I'm not a marketing person new to narrative, so I can't really give any sort of guidance on that type of stuff, on like how to do better on those sort of things. But one of the things I would think of is when you're doing streamer outreach or community outreach, are you targeting people based specifically on what type of games they've covered before? Because if this was my game, I would be looking for like streamers that previously played similar games, like, and when I say similar games, I don't mean just mechanically similar, but games that have the same sort of aesthetic and are mechanically similar. So I would be like basically trying to build a list of all of the streamers that really liked Shroom and Gloom and just focusing on them. Because if they really like Shroom and Gloom, they're going to like this, and it's slightly more complex as well. So it's going to suit them quite well because it's like a step up in a bunch of ways from that game. While being sort of having the same sort of like sensibility and sense of humor. Shrink the healthiest enemy for 2. We're going to try and invest in some shield this turn because we're getting hit for 5. So we'll get 3 shield and we'll shrink this guy so he'll do less damage. And then we'll end the turn. No, let's cancel that actually. Let's focus on drawing for now. Background is so nice, like all of the layers and everything. Right, we're gonna do a big zap on... Oh, actually, no. We'll put the bubble in the middle so that we get some shield. Oh, that's a real waste, though. Okay, let's use that card like we did earlier to draw 6 cards, I think. Okay. Right, we've got 7 incoming damage. If we can take King Slimus out in 1, then we can we can sort that out, but I don't think we're going to be able to. What I think maybe if we shrink him so he does less damage, and we use a no to draw more cards, and a this to get 3 more cards, and then we're gonna... No, actually, let's only draw 2 because the bubble might be helpful. We are going to try and keep the handy one in hand because that will give us free shield at the end of the turn. Okay, now we're going to try and damage 2 guys at once, I think. Oh, I keep forgetting about the cloning effect. It's like the main thing I need to pay attention to in this, is, with these characters. Okay. Just get a little bit of shield. What's this? Mana burn deals damage to you. Oh, yeah. If you cast more than 3 spells, you start getting mana burn that, like, is, like, penalizing you for casting loads and loads of spells in 1 turn. Okay, we're going to do 6 damage to 2 targets. That's kind of a good... We're going to get through this, so we might not have done it as well as we could have, but we're doing okay. King Slimus is such a big Slimus. Okay, bubble. Zap. No, and... You don't want to do the medium slimes with a small amount of damage because you're just wasting the damage by spawning more bad stuff. Yeah, goofy deck builders is your audience, isn't it? It is Shroom and Gloom, Omelette You Cook. You want to find people that are fans of those specific things, not people that only play like grimdark themed combat deck builders. That's the distinction, because you'll always have these like slightly macho people that won't play games unless it's like cool characters killing monsters, and this is, but it is slightly goofy. It's kind of like Nickelodeon vibes. Gain 10 health, can heal over your maximum. I'll get the Plexi spell, that seems quite helpful. When entering a perilous portcullis, add 1 swole to self. Let's do it. I want to go for the slightly harder ones with the bigger rewards. Gain shield. Draw some cards. Draw 2 cards. What we want to do is build our shield up to defend from these guys, and then also have this card ready to turn our shield into damage. Not going to be able to do that though. Poop. Danger Noodle. Why is that happening? Who's locking my spell? Is it you? Okay, we get 1 additional target. We're going to do 2 bounce of blight with 3 points. So we're going to blight you and blight you so that you are just taking automatic damage for the next couple of turns. So you can cast the lock spell, but it just doesn't do anything, I think. Shrink the healthiest enemy so they're doing less damage. Give myself a shield. Use that one to add 6. Does that... Yeah, that doesn't... That's gonna not be doing anything because it's locked. Okay, you have to cast the spell in... You have to put it in a spell to unlock it, but it doesn't do anything. That sucks. Drawing 2 cards in that state is no good because you can't use them. So you need 3 cards to actually cast a spell. Okay. This guy's going to kill me, isn't he? Oh, I nearly missed that. Okay, we're dealing 1 damage. We're getting a shield of 6. And he's giving us needle cards, which is very annoying. That is needle bibidi. I think the game itself is pretty close to being perfect. I don't think that there are any actual issues with the game itself. You know, from what it sounds like, you know, you said, oh, it's hard to do the marketing while still working on the game. Yeah, totally understand that. But if you haven't been doing much of it, I don't see anything about the game itself that should be the problem. There are people that will like this game. There are people that will just organically like this game. I think it is a slightly more complex game that requires more thought, and I think maybe that means that it would be harder to get streamers interested in it, and you should focus on just direct marketing to the people who are going to play the game rather than focusing too much time on streamer outreach. That would be my gut feeling. And again, I'm not an expert in this stuff, and I don't talk about this stuff much. And this is a unique case where when your game is this good and in such a good state, I'm happy to discuss marketing and like what I think will work for your game. Because in this context, it is worth discussing marketing because you have a good game and you can't get people to pay attention to it. Whereas lots of the discussion that goes on about marketing and how hard marketing is and people wanting marketing advice comes from people who have not actually made the game as good as it can be yet. This is a different situation. This game is great. It looks good. It's got loads of stuff working for it, but it is quite a difficult concept. And I think that means that, like pushing the theme and the art and what's happening in the story of the game and the theme of the wizard saying the spells, like someone just said, like just doing lots of pushing of that on platforms like TikTok and Instagram, where people are more likely to be attracted to a game by its art and story. I think focusing on that is a better use of your time than sending out loads of spam to content creators. Because a lot of the content creators as well, their viewers will eventually start telling them which games to play if they have organically seen them through another reason and played the demo and thought it was great. You know, like you go and watch any of Northern Lion, and people in his stream are always pestering him to play this game because he'd like it, or this game because he'd like it. So, you know, my gut feeling is if you've been spending all this time scattergunning content creators and not getting anywhere with it, then maybe that time is better spent. Even if you just experiment with it for a month, you know, like a month of putting a short or a TikTok out every 3 or 4 days. The other thing you should think about, you know, new to narrative being a part of a team, is just working out who is responsible for content creation in different ways. And if you don't enjoy doing it and if you don't like doing it, then are you having like explicit conversations about what the workflow is for producing that content? You know, is it a case of someone comes up with this big spreadsheet of like content ideas, someone else looks at those, provides the footage, someone else actually posts them and makes sure that they have the subtitles on. One of the reasons why TikTok is good, and I don't use TikTok for game stuff much, I used it for personal projects and music and stuff. One of the reasons why TikTok is good, and it's a good place to use as your first place to post vertical thing, is the automatic subtitles on there are very good. And you can sit around messing around with automatic subtitles on a computer in something like DaVinci Resolve, or you can just quickly edit the footage together on your phone or on the computer. And then when you post it to TikTok, it's going to like automatically do the subtitles for you and let you pick a style for them, and you can just consistently pick the same style for every post so that you end up having a brand. And then once you've posted that on TikTok, you can download it and put it on the other platforms if you want to turn it into a YouTube short or something like that. The reason why I always tell people I'm not interested in talking about marketing and marketing practices is because 95% 5% of the people that want to hear about that are not actually at a stage where they need to hear about that. They're at a stage where they need to improve the game design, the creative direction, the art of their game. But this is a game where you are, you are at that stage where you should be thinking about and caring about that. And you've put so much time and effort into making this a very mechanically interesting, very kind of artistically appealing game. And it's just a case of putting that in the right place so people can notice it. But I would say if you're not getting anywhere with content creators, then just focus on showing it directly to people on, TikTok and Instagram and platforms where people care a lot about how things look, and focusing on how funny it is that the little guy says these combinations of, hawkus, that's a funny word. You need to get that into one of your shorts because it's kind of funny. Sounds a bit rude. That's my gut feeling about that. The thing about doing any kind of social media as well is that you have to treat it as a sort of live experiment. So you might approach it first off and go, okay, we're gonna try posting these 4 things, and they're like slightly different variations of things, and then we'll look at those and see how they did, and then we'll eliminate one type of thing, and then we'll just focus on these 2 things. You have to treat it as a have a top level constraint of like, we will post a piece of content every 4 days or something like that, like a top level rhythm of what you're doing. And then within that, have a strategy of like how you cycle through different types of things and test which works, and then like double down on that thing. Sacrifice a spell card. We're going to get rid of a basic Bibidi. Okay, I'm going to do 2 more combats, and then I need to go and get ready for a call that I have. So, Sephatus, you said these need... The reason these are blank is because they don't have a boon, right? So if they had art, then that would be miscommunicating something, because these are blank because they have a boon. I think what you could do is make the blank ones have this thing from below, but they are meant to be blank because that is representing that they don't have any effect if you put them in the first slot. And that's important mechanically because the simple cards are supposed to be lacking that thing, because that incentivizes you to get the other stuff. Okay. Kame. Dragon Ball reference. We're going to do... Okay, we're going to do a big draw. So we're going to draw like 4 cards. Yeah. Maybe the beige fabric just needs to be more zhuzhy. Bubble. Bubble. Zap. We got 3 shield out of that, but we're getting attacked for 6. Now we can turn some of that into damage. Frongo is disgusting. I hate you, Frongo, and I'm going to kill you first. Oh no, we can get rid of the flower in 1, so we should do that really. It's going to shuffle spores into my deck. Does it do that if I kill it in 1 turn? Yeah, it still does it. Hate it. Yeah, maybe just like a sort of very faint magical spiral on the cards that don't have a boon. It could have like slightly grayed out text that says no boon as well, so it's clear that there's a mechanical reason why that is empty rather than placeholder. We're gonna blight 2 guys for 6. Oh, that's pretty good. Right. And then we get 1 shield from that terrible spell to end the round. Ah, you bibidied. You need a better death screen, like just a thing of the moment when you die. remember in run-based games, people are dying a lot. So you need the death to feel almost like... The term I usually use is negative celebration, right? You die in Dark Souls, not a run-based game, but it's iconic. The game over screen in Dark Souls is iconic. And in Slay the Spire, you have this sort of deflating moment where your character crumples to the floor and everything grays out. It's only a couple of seconds, but it is important because there is something about these games where you're like preparing, and then you die. And it's an important moment because it happens over and over and over again. So this is great. I'm glad you've got this information screen here, but you do need a moment before that where we, you know, see something. You've got all of this lovely big character art in the game. So sort of maybe the game over screen should be like you take this big character art like this and you do, you know, those kind of like Hitchcock zooms where the character is slowly moving towards and then the background is moving at the wrong rate. And you do like some sort of twisty kind of, oh no, kind of situation with like, you know, red going to black and white or something like that. You need like you need a proper game over scene, even if it's just for a second. Because that was a weird, abrupt interruption there. And I understand that it's not high priority, but I think in a very sort of a game that is about trying and failing over and over again, it is an important moment in the game, and you do need to juice that a little bit. That's it for today. Thank you for joining me on Wizardnesday. I don't know when the next Wizardnesday will be, but I do get lots of games featuring wizards come in. So maybe we will make Wizardnesday a regular thing. And yeah, we've had both of the devs in for this one. Mamma mia! Yeah. He should say something goofy when you lose. Maybe because the tone of this, you don't want them to die, and they just do a I'm running away, teleporting home kind of spell, you know. Yeah, with the neutral card, well, the cards that don't have a boon on, I would make sure they have text on that says no boon, but that text is not that important. You don't need to read it every time, so it shouldn't be the normal sort of white and black text. So I would make sure that they have a design that incorporates the text that says no boon, but it's in a kind of grayed out or like brown way. And then you can make that empty space look like a deliberately empty space instead of a placeholder, and have the textual information that tells you that there is no boon on that card, but do that in a way that doesn't... Because the problem is, if you have a piece of information like no boon and you make it white and black, people will still skim read it every time, even though they don't need to. And that's kind of the problem that we had with the first game that we looked at, which was the one of our patrons' games, was the... you know, the basic cards all had this main mechanic written on them that didn't need to be repeated every time. We'll go back to Greenfields. You know, when I get a basic card in this first game, they all have right click to rotate pattern in. And the problem with that is your eye still gets drawn to it, even if you know that you don't need to read that information, the player is still gonna... Their brain's going to take a moment to like work out whether or not it's important. And, you know, that's why you need to kind of be sparing with that. But I think if you've got text that kind of only needs to be read once, then you can kind of make it a little bit more subdued. Or part of that's the reason why in a lot of deck builders, when you have keywords and the thing shows up and says poison, this is why things are poison, you'll notice... it often fades in over like half a second rather than just immediately appearing. And the UX reason they've done that is if the keywords like immediately appear every time, or they appear suddenly after a split second, your eyes always get drawn to them, even if you don't need that information right now. So when you're thinking about information hierarchy in like UI design and just general graphic design, like the thing about information hierarchy in graphic design for games is movement is the most powerful driver of like drawing your attention to a particular thing. And if something just suddenly flashes up on the screen, players are always going to look at it, even if they don't need to look at it. So that's why like the kind of keyword explainer text usually fades in a little bit slowly and doesn't immediately appear. And yeah, with that, if you have text that's in like the regular font of the rest of the game, people's brains are going to interpret that as being important, even in a situation like this, where actually, after I understood the basic rules of the game, I know that right click to rotate pattern is actually just the core interaction mechanic and doesn't need to be on all these cards. It's still going to draw my attention because the rest of the game is in training me to think that this text with the highlighted colors and stuff is an important piece of text that I need to understand every time I see it. That's also part of the reason why a lot of card games, digital card games, will hide the rule text of the cards until you deliberately hover over it and bring that card up, so that it's not there like drawing your attention when you don't need to read it, right? So that you can use the mouse to sort of indicate, well, I want to look at this card now, show me the card well enough so that I can read the text. Cards, they're tricky. People think, oh yeah, cards, that's easy, it's some rectangles, but the actual UX of doing them really, really well in video games has lots and lots of little challenges in it, and best practices that you might notice in other games but not really realize why they're there or why they're so important. And yeah, cards, how do they work? No one knows. Have a great rest of the day, and I will probably see you next week. I don't think we have any more streams scheduled for this week, to next week. So see you soon. Thanks for joining. Thanks for sending in your games, and don't cast any dodgy spells that open portals to other worlds unless it's a nice world. But please consult the Council of Wizards on whether the portal you're opening goes to a nice world or a nasty world.